Guys, so it's Tuesday afternoon, and hopefully you guys all had a lovely Christmas and a nice holiday. We had a great Christmas and a nice holiday, so took a little bit of time off. I had my sister up here visiting, my baby sister, and we went to my other sister's house and did the family thing, and it was really nice. So anyway, took a little bit of time off, but I'm back, and we will pick up where I last left off. So it was the last time I saw Ryan alive, so I'm going to get into what happened basically when he got to the methadone clinic and how I pretty much found out what happened of his passing. So anyway, let's just get into it. As you know, my time's limited. So pretty much at this point, Ryan, left our house in a Lyft and was going to the methadone clinic to dose, and he still was on a really high dosage. I want to say what he told me it was at 170 at this point. I think the highest he got was 190. Again, I could not get a straight answer from him. He was supposed to be tapering down so he could get into treatment and detox. That was the plan, but honestly, I don't know if that was really happening because, I would always get a different answer from him. Okay, well, what are you at now? Oh, 150. Okay, what are you at now? 170. And it's like, wait, I thought you were 150 last week, and he'd be like, oh, yeah, so it's like, I don't know. I don't think he was being honest about it. And I'd hear him talking to friends and, they'd be like, what are you at? And he would be like, 190. And I'm like, okay, why does it keep changing? I don't think you're being honest. And he'd always give me some bullshit excuse, so whatever. Anyway, he was just on a really high dose, and he was going there to go do his dose and tell them that he needed them to call an ambulance for him. So, we were just communicating through text messages at this point because I guess it was just too hard for him to talk on the phone. And, Ryan always wanted to talk on the phone, wanted to know what was going on and, see what me and the kids were up to, basically keep tabs on me. And it was very unlike him to call. So it was, odd. And I'm like, what's going on with you? And he said it was too hard for him to talk. So he just wanted to text. And I said, okay. So pretty much, he told me he was at the methadone clinic. He dosed, and he told them he was having trouble breathing, and they took him outside to get air, and he told them to call an ambulance, and that's what they did. They called an ambulance, and, they were all really worried about him. And he, I guess waited for the ambulance for about maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then they took him to the hospital in Sun Valley. So at this point, we were just, texting here and there, but not too much. And I will upload those text messages on Patreon. And also, I believe he took some pictures of himself in the ambulance. Typical Ryan. So I'll look for those and upload those soon, hopefully by the end of the week, maybe the weekend. But I'll definitely do that. Anyway, so he, was just same old, saying how they were treating him like crap, the paramedics, because he's an addict, and talking down to him. And same thing when he got to the ER, just complaining and bitching about how they treated him poorly because of how he looked and being an addict. So anyway, I was just pleading with him at this point, please just stay, get full care. We need to know what's going on with you because it's progressing. It's getting worse to the point where it's really scary. I need you to live. I need you to fight for your life, to be here for our children. And, he wanted to do that too. He said he would be really, really pissed off if he died. I remember he told me this probably like a week before it happened. And, I would be like, don't say that. That's not going to happen. I honestly did not believe that was going to happen. Ryan survived so much at this point. He was such a survivor. And I truly felt in my heart that he was going to have this huge comeback. He was going to sober up, and that was going to be like the last time. We both felt that way. But then he just kind of started saying like he felt like something bad was going to happen, and he felt like he was dying, you know? But anyway, so I didn't feel that way. I really thought he would beat this and come back stronger than ever. So anyway, so I guess he got to the ER, and you know, he was just texting me and telling me he was just sitting there and reading and waiting, and they weren't checking in on him, and he was starving and this and that, and there was some weirdo, you know, transient in the room with him yelling at him and, you know, just complaining about whatever. And eventually, I think, you know, I wasn't really hearing much from him or getting a response, and I was just, you know, wondering. And I think finally around like maybe 7 or 8, I'll have to look at the text messages or I'll upload them and you'll see. He told me they finally took his vitals and did blood work, and his blood was so messed up that they couldn't they didn't know what was going on with him, that they had to do an MRI at this point because they were worried. Again, we still haven't gotten the autopsy, so we don't know the exact cause of death yet. I think the latest is February. I'm probably going to have a phone call with Frank at the end of this week or early next week, or maybe the weekend. But we are overdue for a phone call. We're just kind of letting the holidays go by. We've talked through text, but we'll have a phone call soon, and I'll get an update on that too. So they had to do an MRI, and I was like, whoa, what's going on? And he said, well, from what they're seeing, they think I may have blood clots in my lungs. And it's like, holy, you know, that's pretty serious. Like, what? You know? Oh my God. And he's like, yeah. So we're going to do an MRI soon. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. But then he was starting to complain about wanting to leave. I'm like, no, you can't leave. We need to know what's going on with you. Like, sounds pretty hardcore. He agreed. So he was going to tough it out and stay there. You know, then more time passed. And I think at that point, it was probably after, Wyland fell asleep probably around like shortly after that, maybe like 8:30. And then Nico and I were in the living room with Cubby and watching the news, and we both fell asleep on the couch, and I jumped up off the couch and I didn't know what time it was, and I immediately checked my phone, and I don't have any messages from him, so I'm like, what is going on? And it was like 10:45. And Nico's passed out, so, I call Ryan and I don't get an answer. And then I text like, hey, sorry I fell asleep, but I'm up right now. I'm going to tuck Nico in, and what's going on, At this point, he'd been in and out of ERs all week, and, it was the usual where he would be there for hours, and, I would either have to get him a lift home or let one of his friends know to come and get him, pick him up at the hospital. So I was wondering if he was going to need a ride soon, or is he going to stay overnight, because, that happened a couple times too. And the last text I ever got from him alive was, it just said, they shot me up with a gnarly benzo. And I was half asleep. It didn't even click to think, well, why would they even do that? Don't they know your history? Don't they know what you're on? Like, none of this really clicked until later. And I processed all of this, and I'm still processing all of this, and it's probably going to be some time. But that was the last thing he texted me. They just shot me up with a gnarly benzo. And I was like, well, are you all right? Like, what's going on? And, I said, okay, well, please let me know what's going on. I was not getting a response from him. So I'm like, okay, he's probably just passed out now, because he was doing that a lot too, where he would be so loaded, he'd pass out and I wouldn't hear from him, and then he'd text me or call me when he woke up. So this was kind of still the norm at this point, where I was like, okay, he probably just passed out. I guess I'm going to go to bed. So that's what I did. I went to bed probably close to midnight, and I am woken up at like 3:03 or something like that. And, you know, Wyland's crying. He needs his bottle. So that's what woke me up. So I immediately go make, you know, his bottle and change him and feed him and do all that stuff. And then I check my phone, like, oh my gosh, what if he's been calling or texting and needs a lift home or whatever. I did have missed calls, text messages from him, but I had a missed call from an 818 number, and immediately you just start feeling like something's up. Especially then there was a text message from him. It was his phone, but it wasn't like the way he talked to me. It wasn't his verbiage, and I thought it was weird. It said, call Pacifica Hospital right now. And it was probably like half hour before I woke up. And I'm like, oh my God, I rip the covers off and I jump out of bed so I don't wake up the kids, because they're both, you know, Nico's sleeping next to me and Wyland's in his crib. So I jump out of bed and I go rush into the living room, and I'm on my phone and I'm calling him. He's not answering. I call again. He's not answering. I text and I say, hey, what's going on? I have a missed call from the hospital. I'm about to call them, but are you okay? I'm like freaking out, you know, and there's like no response. So I call the 818 number and, you know, they answer. I'm like, hi, I have a missed call from you guys. You know, my fiance is in the ER, and is everything okay? Like, what's going on? And, you know, it was like the female nurse or something, and she was like, yes, hold on a moment. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? I'm like freaking out. And I'm on hold seriously for like 30 seconds, but it feels like 30 years. And it just takes forever. And then finally, like, the head ER male nurse answers, and he's like, you need to come to the hospital right now. I'm like, what? What's going on? Like, why aren't you guys telling me anything? And he's like, you need to come right now. And I'm like, I like jump off the couch, and literally in this tone and everything, I say, wait, what's going on? Is he like dying? Like, tell me what's going on. And they're like, just please come now. And I'm like, okay, I'm on my way. So I hang up. I had a missed call also from Frank at this point, which was weird to have a missed call from him at like 3 a.m. But anyway, you know, I didn't have my driver's license at this point, but luckily Ryan left the car and the keys. If he hadn't done that, I probably wouldn't have been able to go to the hospital. I don't think that would have happened. But it happened that way. So anyway, I'm like, okay, well now I have to get the kids up. I have to get it's not like I could just run out the door or leave the kids, obviously. So I'm literally hyperventilating. I remember myself like finding trouble to breathe. And I couldn't breathe. I was freaking out. I don't know if anyone's ever been in that, not the same situation, but where you're just so scared and anxious where you start hyperventilating. And I was doing that, but I was like trying to calm myself down so I wouldn't freak the kids out. And I, you know, get myself dressed because I was in my pajamas, and I throw on pretty much anything. And then I pack Wyland's diaper bag, have that ready. And I'm like, okay, you know, I'm loading things into the car. I'm like slowly, I just take Wyland in his pajamas, and, you know, I bring his car seat in, and I quietly like put him in there and try not to wake him up. And Nico, I, you know, change his clothes, and well, he wasn't wearing pants. He was just like in his underwear. So I put pants on him, And, you know, I'm trying not to wake them up and carry them to the car, which I do, but, you know, eventually they start to wake up on the drive there. And at this point, it's getting closer. It's probably like 3:40. And I am like, my mind's spinning. And, you know, I put the hospital in the GPS and says it's about 17, 18 minutes away. I'm like, oh my God, why can't it just be right here? And so anyway, I driving to the hospital and I call Frank back at this point and he answers and he's like, well, are you at the hospital? Have you been there? I'm like, not yet. I'm on my way. And I'm freaking out. Like, have they talked to you? And he's like, just call me after the hospital. Call me back. And I said, okay. You know, he wasn't really saying much either. So I'm driving and I just remember every stoplight seriously felt like forever. And I remember praying to God and asking him, please don't take him from me yet. Don't take him from my babies. Don't do that. And, you know, honestly, before I got to the hospital, I thought that, I knew in the back of my mind that was a possibility. But I wasn't expecting it. I was like in denial still at this point, and I just was like thinking they were going to tell me. I was hoping, as horrible as it sounds, that, you know, I didn't want to hear he passed. I was like, okay, maybe he's just like in a coma and, you know, he's not responding. Like that's it. He's going to be okay. So anyway, I pull up to the ER and at this point, both boys are awake. And, you know, Nico's like, why are we here? What's going on? And just explaining to him, oh, you know, we're just at the hospital. We're going to see if Daddy's okay. Because, we just kept saying Daddy's sick. And walk into the hospital, you know, and I walk in holding Wylan in his car seat, holding Nico's hand in the other. And everyone just turns and looks at me. I already sense like something's not right, you know. It's just like, God damn it. And people are like bowing their heads, looking like they can't look me in my face. They're looking down, and it's just like, God, what is going on? And, you know, they're like, this is, you know, I talked to like the security guard at the front, and he's like, tell him who I am and what happened. And he's like, okay, hold on just a moment. And they like, you know, go and get the head ER nurse and the doctor. And they pretty much tell me, okay, can you come into this room? They put me like in that little room. And I'm with the kids. And immediately the female nurse, some older Hispanic lady, looks at Nico and Wylan. She like starts tearing up and crying. She's like, oh my God, he looks just like him. And, you know, starts like tearing up. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, you guys need to tell me. And I'm looking at them and, you know, I have to be careful what I tell you guys because there's more to this story after what happened to him after he passed away. And we might pursue legal action. So I can't even get into what happened after this part till we figure out what's going on. So I have to be careful about what I say here. But pretty much they tell me, you know, well, as you know, Ryan came to our, no, I don't even think he said, I said, well, Ryan came to our ER today. I'm like, yeah, I know that. Like, we've been talking. And he's like, he wasn't honest with us. I'm like, well, what do you mean he wasn't honest with you? He wasn't honest about using drugs. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, I mean, didn't you ask him questions? Because I'd gone to 2 different ERs with him that week. And it was so obvious, like, he did not look sober or healthy. And if you're in the medical field, I feel like you would kind of pick up on that. I don't know. So it was just seemed like BS to me. Especially since the ER the day before that I was at with him, you know, the nurse was taking his vitals and he was talking about, I forget what, oh, being in pain or something. And she's like, oh, no, we're not giving you pain meds, she said. And he was like, no, I'm not trying to get pain meds from you. And she's like, yeah, you know? So she just took one look at him and knew what was up. And anyway, so that just seemed like bullshit to me, but whatever. And, you know, they kept going into, you know, and then we gave him a shot because he was acting so erratic in our ER. We had to calm him down. So we shot him up with a benzo, and because he was pacing around and he, you know, didn't want to stay, and he ripped out his IV, which he did. In his phone, there are, and he did this at another ER, I think like a couple of days before that, so I believe that. But then later on in his phone, I saw there is a picture. It's the last one he took when he was alive. And it's like a flickering light you see in the background, and it's like of the floor of the ER. And there's blood splattered everywhere. So he must have been where he ripped out his IV. And they pretty much told me they were just trying to calm him down. And they kind of calmed him down because, oh, he wanted to leave. He was going to leave. And they're like, you need to stay. So they convinced him to stay, but he said he needed to go to the bathroom. And he went into the bathroom with his backpack. And then when he came out, that he was acting crazy and he was being erratic and that he just stopped. I said, what do you mean he just stopped? And he's like, he went into cardiac arrest. And I just like start crying. I'm like, he's gone? He passed away? And they all look at me and say yes. And it just felt so shocking. Like, I didn't believe it. I could not believe that he was gone. It just felt like I was at like an out-of-body experience. I didn't even feel like myself. It was just very bizarre. I can't really describe it. So they, you know, I said, well, did you guys Narcan him? Did you guys, like, what did you do? Like, what happened, you know? And they tell me we tried to I can't say this word, resuscitate him for an hour. And we just could not get him back. And I was like, oh my God. And I just, you know, I like can't believe it. And I have both kids there with me, which was so messed up. It's not the way I wanted this to go down. I didn't want them there with me. And like, they don't know what's going on. It must be so weird and scary and confusing. And then they see me crying. Like, it was just, and then I have to hold back crying. So I can't even cry and freak out properly. I had to hold it in for them. And they pretty much, you know, say, okay, like, do you want to go see him? And it's like, well, yeah, but I have my kids with me. How am I going to do this? You know? And okay, we'll watch your kids while you go look. And basically, I think they wanted me to identify him. I don't know. It was weird. And they walked me back to where he was. And, you know, it's like a white curtain. And, you know, they pull the curtain back and I go around and I see like the bottom of his feet. And I know it's him because he had really dry, cracked feet at this point. And I knew it was him. And